Welcome to the Starzology Astrology Podcast. I am your host, Alison Price, and I'm here with my co-host, Arwynne O'Neill.
Hi, Alison. It's great to be here again.
It's great to have you once more. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about the eclipse season for autumn 2023.
Yes.
So we're going to be having a look at some of these eclipses and deciding what a season is anyway and what eclipses we've got coming up, and generally some introductory to eclipses.
Absolutely.
Okay. So generally with eclipses, what happens is we have 2 eclipse seasons each year. And the eclipses occur when the sun reaches either the north node or the south node on its journey around the sun. So therefore it takes 6 months to go from the north node to the south node, and then a further 6 months to go from the south node to the north node. And whilst it's in several degrees towards that node, we can actually get eclipses. This is why we have the 2 eclipse seasons. And today we're going to be talking about the autumn 2023 eclipse season. We've got 2 eclipses in this season. We have a solar and a lunar, but each season is different. There could be a lunar and a solar. You could have 3 eclipses, 4 eclipses. And if you look back to 1935, they had 5 eclipses during one season.
Wow.
So, yeah. But in general, you have 2. You have a solar and a lunar, or a lunar and a solar. So that's what we're looking at for this autumn season, generally in October.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So eclipses are one of those things that early astrologers really looked at strongly. It was something that was thought to be very important. And for early humans even, it was very alarming, obviously, to look up into the sky and bright daylight 1 minute, and then the next minute, the sun is suddenly slowly disappearing, and followed by minutes of total darkness in the middle of the daytime. Early humans thought the world was ending, anywhere from just total apocalyptic catastrophe to fears that the crops would not appear that season or whatever. A lot of importance was hinged on eclipses in early human history.
Yeah.
And so obviously it's come to mean something very different now in our modern interpretation of astrology, but it is still something that is important that we look at. If you've never seen a total eclipse, and this, as we're talking about these eclipses that are coming up, we are not actually going to be experiencing a total eclipse in North America, but what we are having is a partial eclipse, or an annular eclipse, not to be confused with annual, but annular, and it will pass over the southwest states. So it'll go from approximately Eugene, Oregon, through Utah, Nevada, and down through Texas, and then across a few countries in South America, including Guatemala, etc. So that's what this one in October is going to be doing. Historically, however, this is one of my favorite articles that I've ever read. It was actually an essay called Total Eclipse, which we will link to in the show notes, by Annie Dillard. So if you wanted to look that up on your own, it's just called Total Eclipse. It was written in 1982 by Annie Dillard, and that's Dillard. And it was about a total eclipse that she witnessed in eastern Washington. And her description of it is just so profoundly beautiful and affecting. It just makes you want to run out and actually go wherever you have to in the world to see a total eclipse sometime in your life before you die. And This is now a mission of mine after I've read this article a couple of times. Literally, it affected me so profoundly just because her writing is so beautiful. And she brings in all kinds of just human existence and existential dread and what people must have been feeling when they were on the Euphrates, the banks of the Euphrates in ancient times, looking at what they thought was like a dragon eating the sun, or however they described it. And so this is the historical sort of context of eclipses and why they are important to us humans.
They are. I mean, it's quite visible, isn't it? Have you not experienced the total solar?
Not a total one. I almost, in 2016, I believe it was, we had a very, very near solar eclipse here. And it was, I believe, 92% total.
Yes, it was quite good.
Which seems like it'd be pretty total, but the sky never really seemed to darken where we were. And where we were is Vancouver. If we had traveled down to sort of mid-Oregon, it would have been total, but we didn't. And we stood out in the courtyard of one of the buildings downtown, and a lot of people had eclipse glasses, and you could really see, like literally you'd look up into the sky and look towards the sun, and you would see this cutout, which is crazy. You're looking at it, it looks full because the sun is like an incredibly bright star, but you'd see this Pac-Man looking like bite out of it, which was It was just crazy. Not Pac-Man, because that would be a triangle. But anyway, it was just a disc over the sun, literally the moon covering the sun partially and almost completely. And a lot of people actually had little homemade devices, little cardboard things, little Cracker Jack boxes, that worked really well. And people were very generous about handing them around and letting people see, especially children who came to watch. And it was just a really interesting little bonding moment. I felt, like this is something our human ancestors have been doing for eons. And here we are taking a moment in the middle of a workday and all just congregating out to stare up at the sun.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, back in that one, I was down here at Robson Square. I was actually had a day off, and I was there with my eclipse classes doing the thing. And although it wasn't total, it was still the closest thing we've had recently since I've been in Canada.
Yeah.
But when I was in South Africa, we had a total eclipse in the town of Palabora where I lived, which is like, it gets to 40 degrees C in the summer. It was sweltering. Wow. And suddenly we knew this eclipse was coming, and we were all outside with the kids. And it was slowly, it got darker and darker and darker. But it also got cold, which was suddenly unexpected because it's super hot there. And the birds stopped chirping, which was something. And my kids some of them were anxious, and they ran in the house because it was like gloomy.
Right.
But I think if you can go and see an eclipse, you absolutely need to. Yeah. And you do get people called eclipse chasers who get on planes and fly in the shadow of the moon so they can extend that eclipse as long as possible. Although, of course, the moon does go faster than the plane would, but still, it's certainly a thing.
Oh, that's another thing, too. There were pictures from airplanes that people took. That was a huge, you can just Google it if you weren't around or don't remember that. The 2016 eclipse airplane photos would be the keywords to find those. Remarkable.
Amazing.
Really, really neat. Yeah. Very cool. Because, of course, the danger is you travel to some place and then there's some cloud cover and then all is lost, right?
This is the thing. And, of course, if you've got an eclipse path that's going across, say, the States or somewhere, populated, those hotels are booked up years ahead.
Yeah.
When people are just camping out in fields to see these eclipses. Yeah. So these are generally what we took. These are the solar eclipses, and that'll be the first one that'll be coming along. It'll be around October the 14th, 13th, 14th, 15th, depending where you live. But for us, it's going to be on October the 14th. And the eclipse will actually be at 21 Libra at the South Node. So that would be the actual position where this eclipse, the first solar eclipse, is going to occur. And we would then want to look at it, well, where does this occur in your chart? So we could get some kind of interpretation on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the general rule with eclipses is the amount of totality for each eclipse indicates the amount of, you then extrapolate that to the amount of months of the effect of this eclipse. Because back in the day, they thought the eclipses just were in effect for 6 months from one to the other. But as astrologers now, we're a little bit more precise. And we know that this particular one on October the 14th, the totality is going to be 5 minutes and 17 seconds. Thank you, NASA. And therefore, as astrologers, we can interpret that the effect of this particular eclipse, if it triggers your chart, will be 5 months and 17 point something of the month. So generally 5 months, 1 week will be the effect of this particular eclipse, which is really quite long. So most of them are much shorter than that. So that's an interesting thing. So if you've got planets or points at 21 Libra, this eclipse will affect you, and it will be in effect for at least 5 months afterwards.
Interesting.
And certainly if the eclipse occurs to conjoin your sun, because it's your birthday, it's then built into your solar return chart.
Right.
So then you'll have the full 12 months of this eclipse manifesting in your life.
Interesting. Yeah.
But for those of us who have nothing in Libra and this is not connecting to our charts, it generally passes by unnoticed. Right. Yeah. So if we take this solar eclipse that's happening on October the 14th at 21 Libra, we would the first thing you would want to know is, well, where is it occurring in your chart? And is it making a conjunction to any of your planets?
Right.
And Arwynne, is it making a conjunction to any of your planets?
Well, apparently it is. It is making a conjunction to Uranus or Uranus, depending on how you want to pronounce that. Yes. I went through a phase of wanting to say Uranus, but that sounds awful. I'm back to Uranus.
Uranus? Okay, we'll go with Uranus.
Uranus, yeah.
So we've got a solar eclipse conjoined Uranus.
It's super Greek. Oh, brother, yes.
So what does Uranus represent in your chart? How do you see this being expressed?
It is in my 12th house. It is in Libra, and it is loosely conjunct Venus and Pluto, because that's a generational thing for me. And it's hilarious because I kind of think, even though Venus is in the 11th house for me, not the 12th house, which I would consider frightening and not something I'd want to tell people about, especially potential partners or friends. No, my Venus is not in my 12th house. What are you talking about? Anyway, but Uranus is, Pluto and Venus are in my 11th house, but they're all like within like 9 degrees of each other. So it's kind of a rolling conjunction, as they say. But I kind of picture it like, you know, those like early 90s kind of movies where like there was like a goth trio in high school, and it was like a girl and like 2 guys, and not Twilight. I'm just talking about like high school movies where maybe they were goths, and that's what I picture. I picture like some goth girl, which is Venus, and then like her 2 best friends who are like guys, and that's Pluto and Uranus, and they're just like, they're wearing the black eyeliner and the trench coats, and they're very artistic, and maybe she's in love with one of them, and maybe they're both in love with her, and they get into trouble.
Okay,
that's how I picture it. Those are my Libra planets. Yeah. So anyway.
So with this solar eclipse occurring on your Uranus, from my point of view, I would be looking at it, if we take the Uranus as the representation of astrology in general in your 12th house, this leans into your astrology research and probably maybe a deep dive into something starting new, because it is really technically a new moon. Yeah. It's a new beginning.
It's an eclipse on a new moon. Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. And
so, before the eclipse, you might be thinking about humming and hawing about something, but at that point of the eclipse, as it triggers that Uranus in your chart, you may find something piques your interest astrologically, and you decide to go down a different route or explore something new, or do some other things that we were talking about a little earlier, or maybe, looking into different things.
Exactly. Yeah. So something.
And, once we have this 5-month period under your belt, we can actually come back at our next eclipse session and discuss how did that unfold. Yeah. How did it unfold? Did you find the effect there? And because it actually does have to, eclipses have to connect to your chart, otherwise they pass you by.
Yes.
There's no question about it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's very interesting that you've got that full-blown connection there.
Yeah. Totally.
We didn't know till we had a look, right?
Right, exactly.
Okay.
So in the spirit of looking back, what we can actually now do is look back to the Thursday, April 20th eclipse, which was in Aries. And that was at 29 degrees Aries. So if we have anything, I know neither of us do, but if anyone in our audience, listeners, have anything at 29 degrees Aries, what happened around April 20th of last year to you? Did anything happen that was major? Did anything get started at that time that has lasted a few months? And if so, tell us about it. Yeah, exactly. We're curious, and it's all about personal experience.
It is.
We can list a bunch of textbook stuff, but in the end, it's all about like what actually.
How did it unfold for you?
Exactly.
Yeah. Was it good for you? Yeah. Well, this is it, and I honestly believe that with eclipses, they are subtle.
Yeah.
And it's very much like it's a powerful new moon, technically. Yeah. But if it doesn't connect with a conjunction to your chart, it's passing you by. You've got bigger fish to fry with the other planets.
Yeah, it's just like that partial eclipse thing. I mean, we could have, if we didn't know that it was almost at 92% back in 2016.
We may not have known.
We might have been just walking in, like, what is all these, why are these people wearing these funny glasses?
Yes, yes.
Literally.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so the things you might have felt in the previous eclipse, because it was in Aries, and Aries is sort of a more combative, competitive, ambitious sign, that you might have been compelled to like plow ahead into some new endeavor, a new project, something new in your profession, or some new personal endeavor that was unusual and different, and maybe just change directions for you. So that's something to look for if you do have something at 29 degrees Aries. And obviously Libra is the opposite sign. This is another thing about eclipse seasons. They affect the cardinal, this particular one, obviously, since the previous one was in Aries and this one is in Libra, it'll affect the cardinal signs the most. So if you have anything at those direct conjunct points, that's something to look at. But just on a milder sort of level, if you have anything at the cardinal degrees of those Capricorn, Aries.
That's right.
Yeah, et cetera. And obviously Libra is the opposite of Aries.
Yes.
It's more about partnership.
6 months on, and we've got the Libra one, which we're talking about now. And now the sun has reached the position of being near the south node.
Yeah.
So south node eclipses I relate them to when the tide is going out off the beach, and it actually removes all the trash off the beach, and it's a time for you to let go of your stuff.
Interesting.
It's a releasing where you can let go of people, partners, and junk, or whoever that friends that are no longer serving, and it's a time of letting go because it's a south node.
Yeah.
So that would be the solar eclipse on the 14th.
Interesting.
Whereas the other one is different. We'll talk about that in a moment. So paying attention to which node the sun is at will give a clue as well as how this is going to be expressed for you too.
For sure. Yeah.
Okay, great. So let's turn our attention now to the second eclipse of this autumn 2023 eclipse season. And this is going to bring us a lunar eclipse on October the 28th or 7th or 29th, depending where you live in the world. But in Vancouver, it's going to be on October the 28th. And it will be at 5 degrees Taurus. So this is a lunar eclipse and again at the north node. Now, this is a partial eclipse, which means that if you can see the moon that night, you will actually be able to see it going into the shadow of the earth partially, and the part of the moon will be covered. So it's not a full one, but still it's of interest, and we pay attention to these things.
I would imagine it's more visible than a partial solar eclipse.
Exactly. So with the solar eclipse, you can only see it if you're on that path going through the states. But with the lunar eclipse, if you can see the moon that night, you can see the eclipse. So it's half the planet. We'll be able to look up and see. Therefore, of course, we see more lunar eclipse than we do solar.
Right. Interesting.
But so because the sun and the moon are in opposition, you've got that situation where as the sun sets and the moon rises, it's a full moon anyway, and it dominates a lunar eclipse, whereas the other way around, the sun dominates.
Right.
Yeah, so this eclipse is going to be at 5 degrees Taurus, and I don't know, Arwynne, does that connect with your chart?
Boy, does it. It is conjunct by Mars.
Oh, really?
It's all about me today.
Oh my God, it's definitely your season.
Yeah.
Let me have a look at that again. Let's just see. We said it was 5 degrees Taurus. Yeah.
There I am.
There it is. So we can, So that's
in the 7th house. So I don't know.
So it's all go with your guy, isn't it?
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Yeah. What does that mean?
Okay, so because it's in Taurus and because it's a lunar, the moon is actually then in Taurus and it's exalted there. It's well placed. It's likely to bring, we want to say, because of the opposition, there could be some projection, but you can clearly see what is going on. You're not under any illusions about situations. If the socks are lying on the floor, you either accept it or you move on, but there's not this, I thought he was a saint, but now I realize he isn't. Or whatever.
Right, yeah.
And of course, that's going to be probably your experience of it.
Right.
So because the sun is at the south node, the actual eclipse occurs where the moon is, which is at the north node.
Right.
And this is symbolic of the tide coming onto the beach, bringing goodies to you, bringing driftwood, bringing shells, bringing who knows what, a chest full of gold and golden doubloons. It brings stuff towards you.
Interesting.
Whereas the south node cleans things out, this brings new things to you.
Yeah.
So it could be people, situations, jobs, relationships, or something like that.
Wonderful.
So there may be some new aspect of your relationship with him, or you might, if it's not him, you may meet some other person, a young man who is going to perhaps even, because it's 7th house, become maybe a business partner, someone you can collaborate with on something or other, or some other project you want to be doing, but it's going to bring new things to you.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And my partner did just start a new job. Which
okay.
That's one thing, but that's awesome.
That's great. So that will occur, as we say, October 28th. And also I couldn't get the timing from NASA. They used to put it on their data sheets, but they haven't been doing that for the past few years. So I'm not quite sure on the timing on this, but because of that, I'll take an average of 3 months from that date to say that whatever occurs on eclipse day will then manifest further for you in those 3 months, because in the nature of your Mars, in the nature of the 7th house, Taurus, blah, blah, and that will manifest for you in that particular way.
Amazing.
And again, if you don't have this eclipse triggering your chart whatsoever, it's really going to just pass everybody by.
Yeah, anyone who doesn't have something at 5 degrees Taurus. Yeah, so obviously, if it's not directly conjunct any of your planets, so if it's not at 5 degrees of Taurus or 20 degrees Libra, I believe we said, 21 degrees Libra for the solar eclipse on the 14th, then you don't really need to think that it's going to affect you a lot. But you can still take a look at what house it's passing through.
Right.
And that can be interesting because we just discussed what it means passing through my 7th house.
Yes.
And it's interesting because it's about partnership and it's about possible business partnerships and those things. What house is this going to be in for you?
It will occur in my 10th house.
Nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
So hopefully
bringing fresh new goodies into your
fresh new goodies into my business. Yeah. A new, who knows what opportunities and connections and North Node stuff.
Awesome.
A treasure trove of doubloons will arrive on my beach.
I love it. Yeah. So take a look at your chart and find out where you have 5 degrees Taurus and 21 degrees Libra, and just look for something happening
That's right.
in the
on
houses that
day.
Those recommend. That represent on those eclipse days.
Yeah, that's great. And of course, if it actually happens on your birthday, it will be hard baked into your solar return.
Yeah.
So that's always interesting if you've got an eclipse on your birthday to pay attention to those.
Definitely.
Okay, Arwynne, so just to recap, we're into the second eclipse season of 2023. We've got 2 eclipses. We've got a solar eclipse on October the 14th at 21 Libra, and then there's 2 weeks later, we've got the lunar eclipse on October the 28th at 5 Taurus. These are going to be eclipses that will occur in that autumn eclipse season for us this year. And I look forward to coming back again in 6 months' time to see what in the 2024 eclipses, to see how things unfolded for this. Eclipse is happening every 6 months. It's certainly an episode that interests me, that we could certainly talk about again every 6 months, technically, with eclipses.
Absolutely.
Because there's no point talking about them at any other time except when they're happening, right?
Right.
Okay, lovely. Well, thank you so much again for being here with us, and it's been great having you.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's been great.
Thanks so much for getting this far through the episode. I just want to take a moment to tell you about the 2 main options of my astrology services. So the first one is coaching. If you are an aspiring astrologer, and by that I mean someone who's perhaps a hobbyist astrologer, or someone who's learning astrology, or a student, or you've got a few books and you've been doing it for a while, but perhaps you need a little bit of help to bring it all together, then maybe getting some astrological coaching from me would be the answer for you. The astrology coaching I offer is a 1-hour session on Zoom, and it's tailored to answer your particular questions. For example, if you have issues with natal chart readings, we can go there. Or if you're having problems working with your forecasting, we can go there. Or even basic astrology stuff, or even getting yourself organized for your astrology business. The idea is that astrological coaching will answer your particular questions. It's tailored specifically to you and where you are in your astrological journey. And I'm happy to help you out with some guidance about how you can get going, what to focus on, and what to dismiss. So that would be the astrological coaching for people trying to learn astrology. The second astrological service I offer is consultations. So this is for someone who perhaps doesn't know anything about astrology, but they just want to have their chart read or get their chart done. Call it what you will. So once more, this is a 1-hour consultation over Zoom. I will interpret your chart, tell you about the main features, tell you about where the energy is flowing, and all the rest of what is entailed in a thorough natal chart interpretation. I can also add in some forecasting in there too, bearing in mind we only have 1 hour. So just in summary, I've got coaching for people who want to learn astrology, and I've got consultations for those who want to get an astrology reading done. I'm Alison Price from Starzology.com. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time.